everyone, Namajama back again for another phone review. This is my second phone review here, and today we're going to be looking at the HTC Sensation, and this is a 4G phone. I got this one from T-Mobile, but I'm actually in Canada, so I actually use it on the Mobilicity network. So basically, as all my reviews, what my goal is today is to keep it short, under 15 minutes, and to kind of give you a everyday user's perspective from using this phone day in and day out. I've had this phone for about 2 months now. I can tell you so far that I'm a big fan of the phone, and let's just get into the review, shall we? Okay, let's get into the quick specs of this phone here, specs that you guys probably care about. It is running a 1.2 gigahertz dual-core Scorpion processor with 768 megabytes of RAM, 1 gigabyte internal memory, of course expandable by a micro SD card slot. It weighs in 148 grams, so not your lightest phone, but it's quite sturdy, and I don't find it heavy at all. It also has a 8 megapixel camera in the back with dual LED flash, and it has a front-facing dedicated camera here, VGA dedicated camera. In terms of software, this bad boy, of course, is running Android 2.3.4, which is Gingerbread. Alright, let's get into the hardware of this, the HTC Sensation. This is, what they've done is that they've used a unibody design. So the case here in the back, when you take the battery cover off, it kind of goes over the entire phone here. And I'll show you what it looks like with the case off. So basically you gotta use this button here and kind of pry it off. I'll show you. So here it is with the case off. Now see what I mean? It kind of goes over the entire phone. There's the speaker grill, and it goes down the bottom there. At first I didn't like it, but I gotta say that once you have it and hold it in your hands, what this unibody back does is that it actually makes the phone feel a lot sturdier and stronger when dealing with it every day. So continuing with the hardware review, I like the overall build. It's a nice metallic and kind of like good quality plastic body to it. So it feels very sturdy in your hand and doesn't feel like it's cheap or anything. It just feels like a high quality phone overall. And I'm really impressed with the design that HTC has done with this phone, and I think it's pretty sexy. Excuse the I have an anti-glare screen protector on here, and of course I bloated the back with a bunch of my stickers here. So when looking at the buttons here, you have your typical power button on the top, 3.5 millimeter headphone jack here. On the right hand side, there are no buttons at all. Not even a dedicated shutter button, which I would have liked. At the bottom, nothing, except for the the small tab to open the back cover up. On the left hand side, you have your typical micro USB slot for charging and to connect to your computer, and you have a nice metal volume rocker here, which actually it's pretty flush to the phone, and it's pretty easy to operate as well. In terms of the screen is quite beautiful. It's 4.3 inches, super LCD capacitive touchscreen, 540 by 960 pixels. And if you look closely at the text are very sharp, and they appear to pop off the screen, making very small text easy to read. And if you crank the setting, the brightness all the way up, the pictures look really vibrant on this phone. One complaint that a lot of reviewers have had, and what I've had as well, is that the viewing angles aren't that great. As you can see here, it kind of fades away around this point here. And sunlight legibility, although it's better than other HTC phones out there, it's still something I think HTC really needs to work at. Okay, let's get into the home screen and the software of the phone, which is HTC Sense 3.0. If you're used to using HTC phones in the past, I gotta say this phone 3.0 seems very similar, and not that many changes as I would have liked. I'll show you a couple of cool things that I have noticed though. Of course, there's new weather animations, which is something HTC always does really well. And instead of going with the moving wallpaper in the background, they've set to a locked wallpaper, so it kind of sits there. And they've added this nice carousel effect. So if you spin it really quickly, Of course, yeah, there you go. It does a little carousel and it keeps spinning. So I think, that's a nice touch to the phone. And one thing that you'll notice too is that the lock screen is different. So there's a pull ring tab here. So if you pull it all the way here, it just unlocks the phone. Or if you unlock it again and you can choose what icons you want on the back here. There are shortcuts. You can choose whether you want to make a phone call, just drag it to the ring there and it'll go right to the phone call. Or if you say if you want to go to the camera, drag to the camera and it'll go right to the camera as well. So that's a nice feature to have. For example, I'll go to the camera and then boom, it goes right to the camera. So getting into the apps here, this phone has no problem running most of the apps out there on the Android market. In fact, I haven't run into any problems at all. The only problem I've ran into is that some apps I can't find for the HTC Sensation. For example, Asphalt 6 HD doesn't work, and you can't even find it for this phone. Yet I could run it on my HTC Panache, which is also known as the MyTouch 4G in the States. But for some reason, it's not available on this phone. And HTC has kept with their page by page scrolling, which is okay. I don't mind it, but I actually prefer if I had that fluid scrolling. We can go from the top of the page all the way to the bottom, like on most Android phones. But this one doesn't have it. But not a deal breaker by any means. Okay, now I'm going to run Quadrant Standard Benchmark. I'm not a big fan of running this personally because I think it doesn't really indicate how the phone operates day to day, but I'll run it for you for you guys anyway. Okay, all done. Let's see the results. Okay, so according to Quadrant, the score is 1953, so it's 1953. Okay, so now I'm going to do the everyday usage of this phone. Okay, so typical person such as myself who likes to fully utilize their phone to the maximum capacity, I've loaded every screen, every space possible on this phone. So there is not one empty space on this phone, and as you can see, it's pretty smooth going side by side, and I never have any issues with it freezing or locking in that sense. But I do have an issue with the homepage loading if I go into an app for a long time, if I do some other activity on the phone for a long time. I'll show you an example of that later. So let's look at making a phone call on this phone. Typical, the phone icon is on the bottom, and see it loads up pretty quickly, and you have access to the dial pad, your recent phone calls, and if you go in here, you also have all your contacts, recent calls, your favorites, all that stuff. So in terms of making a phone call, not much different than other Android phones out there, but HTC has done a nice job in making phone calls real easy, and the call quality on this phone is pretty good overall. I can't complain about too many drop calls. The sound comes out pretty clear, and the speakerphone is actually pretty loud. But for some reason, I watch movies and stuff, it's not as loud as the speakerphone. So go figure. Okay, so I want to show you saying how fast saying a text message can be. Typically it's pretty fast, but I'm going to show you an example right now where if you have a lot of text messages stored on your phone already, it can tend to slow down. So I always use handset messaging, SMS messaging, just because I'm a big fan of the way it looks and how it operates. But if you have a lot of messages, see how long it's loading to get to my messages. So, for 1.2 gigahertz phone, dual core phone, by the way, I don't think there's much of an excuse for that. And, scrolling up and down can be kind of jittery. See, it's not really that smooth. And again, for such a fast phone, I don't think there should be an excuse for that. In sending a message, click on that and you just type in your recipient and away you go. Not much different in that sense, but I don't like how choppy this phone can be in terms of sending text messages. Alright, now I'm going to show you the very cool camera on this phone. I love the camera on this phone. It's actually one of the better camera phones I've used. I think HTC's done a great job. And I've compared to iPhone 4 pictures and other high-end Android devices, and the cameras are, I'm not, a photography Not by any means, but the features that this camera offers, the software features, are really fun to play with. And I'll show you an example. Okay, so here's a bear here. I'll take a photo. Oh, here's the shutter button. And this is the effect button here. You have your flash options on, auto, off. And if you go in here, you can also make all your adjustments such as ISO, resolution, white balancing, and there's a bunch of scenes you can choose from too, which is really cool. And you also choose whether you want widescreen, and a bunch of other features. So here, let me show you some of the editing features this phone has. Okay, so I took a picture of the bear, and if you click on here, there's a enhance button or magic button here, in which you can add a bunch of cool effects to it, like this. You can auto enhance the picture, which will, darken some colors and brighten others. You can add effects like cinnamon, black and white. You can also add a basic frame to it, like that, or you can make it antique looking. I know there's a bunch of camera apps out there that do all this, but for a built-in camera app on HTC Sensation, it works pretty well, and I've used it quite a bit actually, and it makes a lot of cool photos. Okay, so right now I want to show you an example of a game on the phone. I have several, high graphics or very hardware intensive games on here, but I'll show you one example. Shine Runner, which is a pretty popular game now on the Android market, and I'll show you how it plays. Okay, I'm not very good at this game, but as you see, the frame rate is pretty beautiful on this game, and it's actually pretty good on this phone as well. See, there's no lag at all, runs really smooth, and everything is pretty responsive in terms of controls. In terms of music player on the HTC Sensation, HTC has done a nice job with their music player. That was a widget that you can play from there. It is very intuitive. You can do a lot of things here. Of course, like when you hit play, it actually starts right away, which I love. Scrolling down here is pretty easy on the phone. Skipping songs, yes, I have the Beach Boys on here. So skipping songs is pretty easy. You can also up here that you can change the effects of the sound. You can have no effects. You can have surround sound enhancement, which they offer. It actually works pretty well on this phone. And you can shuffle, of course. You can go into your library, go to playlists, go to all your songs. You can go by genres. You can go by your albums, and you can go by artists as well. Very intuitive, very fast on this phone. I have about 300 or 350 songs on this, and again, see how quick it is to go through all your songs. Very fluid, and you can scroll through letters. Overall, I think the music player is great on this phone.